As a car enthusiast, we live in a golden era of putting engines in cars that, well, don't belong there, and generally speaking, the engine swap in question does improve upon the stock power plant of whatever car. However, there are some cases where you look at the build and you just can't help but think, what are you doing? And that, well, rather inconveniently brings me to these guys. They're called Boosted Motorsports, and short version of the story is Dodge reached out to them to build a car for Roadkill Nights. And, well, at Roadkill Nights, they, well, do drag racing, and if you're gonna use a Dodge, or any Mopar for that matter, and go drag racing with it, you're not exactly left wanting. Hellcats, Demons, Hemis, the list goes on and on and on, and heck, even the Viper, though it is a sports car, can be built to be a pretty epic drag racing machine. The V10s can be built to withstand well over 2,000 horsepower, which is more than enough horsepower to build yourself a, well, freaking rocket ship. Here's the thing, Boosted Motorsports, they only had 2 months to build the car, and, well, they chose a Viper, which, as I said, is a really good choice if you want to go drag racing. Viper in question, it was already supercharged, it was in clean condition, the motor ran, it was a good car. This wasn't some junkyard find or totaled vehicle, and, well, frankly, that's not a bad place to start with a race car, but where things sort of get not so great is their chosen weapon for power. Now, does at this point you're expecting me to say something like a Hemi or a Hellcat or a Hellafin or some fire-breathing Mopar V8? What they actually chose was the relatively new Hurricane Straight 6.
Disappointed!
And it is at this point that I absolutely do have to point out that yes, people have been doing these sort of, I don't want to call them troll builds, but basically putting engines in cars that make the fans of said cars not exactly happy with them. Well, you have things like this, a Hellafin or Hellcat based engine into a Mark IV Supra. You have Adam LZ, who famously put a Ford Barra Straight 6 into a Ford Mustang Shelby GT350. And here's the thing, while both of those builds have their, well, we'll just call them quirks, I would argue that the Viper is a much more special vehicle than either of them. When it comes to Vipers, especially the SR2s, number one, they just didn't make nearly as many as they did the other two. Number two, see, Vipers very famously early on in their life didn't exactly come with a lot of, well, creature comforts. What makes Viper special is the massive, thunderous, simple American monster living under the hood. And if the engine swap wasn't enough for you, this thing, well, it's getting an automatic. And yes, I know, automatics on the strip are generally speaking faster than manuals. So I wouldn't have been surprised if this thing came with, say, a Turbo 400 or any of that sort of stuff. What it did come was with a modern 8-speed automatic transmission. Now look, when it comes to the build and these guys' knowledge and their ability to build cars, I am not questioning that at all. They seem to be very good at building, well, in some cases, cool cars, just not this time.